Welcome to this explainer. I want you to imagine we're just pulling up a chair to a warm, crackling fire right now. Because today, we aren't just looking at a famous historical battle. We're actually going on a journey to explore a really profound strategic and psychological trap. A trap that's so subtle, it catches even the most brilliant, battle-tested minds. So let's just dive right into it. Here's a question that honestly should haunt every single ambitious leader or thinker out there. What happens when opportunity knocks, but you haven't bothered to study the battlefield? That is the core mental model of our explainer today. We're looking at the intense, literal danger of jumping at what looks like a super easy win, a golden ticket, right? Without understanding the complex reality lurking just beneath the surface. We're going to call this the trap of opportunity. It's exactly what it sounds like, seizing a perceived advantage without doing the incredibly hard work of understanding your opposition, the landscape, or the underlying context. And make no mistake about it, this very trap has literally ruined massive businesses, seasoned leaders, and, as we'll see, entire armies throughout history. To help guide us through this forest of ideas, we're leaning on a philosophy from Papa, the author of the newsletter this explainer is based on. He puts it perfectly, writing, "Taking advantage of an opportunity is a sound tactical move. However, it is equally vital to look before you leap." Papa's warning us here that rushing forward without fully grasping the competitive landscape, well, that is a guaranteed one-way ticket to blundering into defeat. Act 1. Laying the historical groundwork. Let's set the scene. Let's see how this actually plays out in the real world by shifting our focus to the sweeping plains of the American West in the late 19th century. The really crucial thing to remember here is that tragedy is almost never born overnight. Back in 1868, the Fort Laramie Treaty promised the Lakota the sacred Black Hills. But just 6 years later, in 1874, gold is discovered, and miners absolutely flood the area. By January 1876, the U.S. government issues this ultimatum pushing Native families onto reservations, which ultimately leads to a massive convergence at the Little Bighorn River in June. It was this long, painful chain of broken promises and escalating tension. And here is the crucial context that the U.S. Army just fatally ignored. The Native forces gathering out on the plains weren't some random, disorganized encampment. Absolutely not. They were deeply motivated families, Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho, who were backed into a corner, fighting for their literal survival, their sovereignty, and their sacred homeland. Just listen to the firm, unyielding stance of Lakota chief and holy man Sitting Bull. He said, "This part of the country does not belong to your people. You belong on the other side. This side is ours." I mean, that humanizes the historical record so perfectly, doesn't it? They were defending their very existence and their way of life against this unrelenting industrial machine. Which brings us to Act 2, Tension and Fateful Decisions. So we shift the narrative to the fateful day of June 25, 1876, at the Little Bighorn River, a place known to the Native people as Greasy Grass. And this perfectly illustrates the fatal disconnect at the heart of our story. In Custer's mind, he looked out at the valley and saw a mirage. He thought he saw a disorganized, scattering village that he could just quickly capture for headline-grabbing victory. But the stark reality waiting for him? It was a massive, unified camp of thousands, fiercely defended by tactical masters like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. So how does a seasoned, unconventional Civil War hero fall so completely into the trap of opportunity? Well, through a series of panicked miscalculations. Once his scouts discovered the camp, Custer panicked. He feared they would escape. There's that rush, right? That desperate rush to seize the perceived advantage. Because of this, he actually broke basic tactical rules. He divided his regiment into 4 segments, and he attacked without anything close to full intelligence of the landscape. 210. I really want you to just let that number sink in for a second. That is the mere 210 men Custer kept in his immediate command. Because he so fundamentally misread the battlefield, he rode into a valley to face roughly 2,000 defending warriors with just 210 soldiers. It's almost unbelievable. In fact, the sheer scale of the Native encampment made Custer's unprovoked attack seem almost incomprehensible to the people defending it. Low Dog, an Ogallala Lakota warrior, later recalled, "I did not think anyone would come and attack us so strong as we were." The Native forces were basically a towering wave, and Custer had just thrown a pebble. Moving into Act 3, Navigating the Unseen Battlefield. Let's pivot from this tragic history to the broader metaphor here, connecting Custer's blind spots in 1876 directly to the decisions you and I make in our daily lives. Think about the hidden math of Custer's decision. It's a really powerful warning for us. A mere 15% was the visible opportunity he saw, but a massive 85% was the unseen landscape, the trap. When we focus exclusively on the prize, it totally obscures the massive hidden risks in literally any situation. It's exactly like looking through a keyhole. You see the shiny opportunity on the other side, but you are completely missing the rest of the room. In business, in leadership, or just personal decisions, past success, much like Custer's daring charges back in the Civil War, often makes us way too confident. It narrows our vision to a tiny keyhole just when we need it to be at its widest. And the ultimate cost of that narrow vision becomes so stark when we compare his illusion to reality. Custer's illusion told him the force was a scattering few. The reality was 2,000 unified warriors. He assumed their motive was to flee in panic. In reality, they were fiercely defending their homes. His plan was a quick, easy victory, but the reality was a total annihilation of his immediate command. Lessons from Greasy Grass. Let's pull this all together. Here are the vital takeaways so we don't repeat history's mistakes. First, past brilliance absolutely does not guarantee future success. Don't let yesterday's wins make you lazy today. Second, never underestimate your opposition's motives, especially when they're fighting for survival. Third, do the hard work of preparation. And finally, avoid dividing your strengths blindly when the landscape is totally unknown to you. Now, we also really must acknowledge the aftermath of this specific historical event. While the Native forces won a stunning, truly masterful victory at Greasy Grass to protect their families, it triggered a devastating, overwhelming government retaliation that forever altered their way of life. It was a momentary victory with a very, very heavy shadow. But for us, looking back, it serves as an incredibly poignant reminder. Courage and speed, they mean absolutely nothing without comprehensive awareness. True opportunity requires deep, deep understanding, not just swift, reckless action. Which brings us to our final Papa-inspired thought to close out our journey today. Opportunity knocking doesn't end in victory if you haven't done the hard work of understanding the enemy, his motivations, the landscape, and the battlefield. It leads to blundering into defeat. So the next time you see what looks like an easy win, I want you to ask yourself, are you actually studying the whole battlefield, or are you just looking through the keyhole?